minutes in the afternoon is sometimes challenging. It's nice to see all of you, or here we see that you're here. I've had this chut this week of being in touch with people from the Yad Yamin in this way 3 different times now. Once on the call that Rav Naftali Lavender and Yitzhak Inker organized a couple days ago. And then last night I see one or two of you were actually already there, the shir that I gave last night, which this will be a little bit of an overlap too, maybe a little chazara for those of you who were there, and today. So I hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody is able to stay healthy and in good spirits and be able to mechazek everybody else right from the comfort of your own home. Now that we can't get together for the community, but Bezrat Hashem, hopefully we'll be able to come out of this strengthened and in one piece as individuals, as communities, and as part of Am Yisrael. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is take a couple minutes to go over a few very, very practical halachos related to specifically Pesach this year, based on the unusual situation that we find ourselves because of the corona. Again, this will be a little bit of a chazara from last night for those of you who were there. We're going to focus on 3 or 4 different points. Last night we did 7 or 8. Today we'll do about 3 or 4 of them. Rav Orleans, I have the chut of you being here also. If you're sticking around, I'm happy to hear any comments or questions or ha'aras that you have on any of these points. Okay, no, you can write them in the chat box if you don't want to embarrass yourself by getting unmuted or asking. So just write it in the chat box. That's what we did last night, and it was very successful. You got a lot of comments by writing by chat. You can chat to everybody. Everybody can see them. Is totally fine, or just to me. Okay. So the first point that we'll speak about is toveling. Toveling, of course, the halacha of tfilat kelim is a regular halacha that comes up all the time. And by the way, just a word of apology. I wish I would have had a source sheet or something available, or even some websites to look at on the groups or online. Zoom is a great opportunity to be able to use the internet for Torah as well to find things, but unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to actually put together anything before giving this shir. So maybe afterwards we'll have an opportunity to do it. But for now, in terms of tfilat kelim, so tfilat kelim is basically a halacha which we all know about. For Pesach, many people often get new utensils. This year, a little harder to get new utensils. But if you have new utensils, so the question is, how do you go about doing tfilas kelim this year? So option number 1. When I mentioned this last night when I spoke to the Rav of our Yishuv in Mitzvah Yericho here, Rav Yehuda Kreuzer, so I went over with him a couple days ago. Some of the points, just because he often puts out a little manual for halachos, and especially for people in my Yishuv now, I knew a lot of them would be interested to hear what he had to say. So I went over a few things with him to see what he said. The first thing he said about tfilat kelim is, the kelim mikvah is open. Feel free to go and tovel your things. So that depends on where you are with the status of your mikvah, and how many other people are using your mikvah, and how carefully you follow the rules of not going 100 meters outside of your house. So if you are somebody who is willing to go, down the block, take a run, go somewhere else, go to the store, or near the store, not exactly by the store, somewhere else. If you're one of those people, so then if the kelim mikvah is relatively empty and you won't be standing in a line with 5 other people, which I imagine in Yad Yamin, that's not the case. So you can go use the kelim mikvah as normal and hope that nobody's going to stop you and cause trouble. That's one option. Again, I did not say that myself. That's what Rav Yehuda Kreuzer said. Again, from my perspective, it depends on what you would do, whatever you feel comfortable with. But assuming that you're not comfortable doing that, so there's another option. There's a few other options maybe, but the other option that seems to be an interesting option for this year is the following. There's an option in halacha of possibly transferring ownership of a kli to a goy. Meaning if the non-Jew owns your utensil, so then it's not yours. You can simply borrow it from him. And basically, it would not be chayav in tefillah until you acquire it back. So, basically, I'll come back to Rolly and say he wrote something. I'll come back to it in just a minute. Essentially, the idea for the goy would be as follows: that while you give it to the goy for ownership, if you transfer ownership to him, so then you can use it without toveling. The way to do that, the easiest way to do that I've heard about, again, maybe there are others, you can feel free to tell me, any of you, if you're familiar. But the way that I heard is that Somet on their website has an option for making a list, for putting yourself on a list of utensils that they will transfer ownership through their means to a goy. There's the kinyan, I think, is usually called the kinyan odisa. If you basically write down that I hereby write that I give permission to transfer ownership to certain non-Jews, so then they can take ownership simply by that. Again, it's not 100% agreed on, but I think it's pretty well accepted, certainly at a time like this. Again, someone has it on their website. I don't remember exactly where, but if you take a look there, so you can sign yourself up and follow the instructions they give there, and then your utensil will be owned by a non-Jew. As soon as you get it back, meaning as soon as you decide to transfer it back to your ownership, then you would need to tovel it. So that should be put off until you're more comfortable going to the Tfilas Kelim Mikveh. That's one option. So Rav Orlinus, you wrote to me here about tying a loose string on a kli. Okay, so if I understood you correctly, well, you'll have to tell me to clarify if you mean. For somebody who's interested in going to the Kelim Mikveh but is hesitant to put your hands in the water because of concern of infection from the water. So meaning the whole issue with the mikvah, which we won't go into now, is that the women's mikvahs are cleaned very, very well with chlorine and everything else, so that's not so much of a problem. There might be other questions there which we won't go into now, but the Kelim mikvah does not necessarily have the same methods. So if you're concerned about that and using gloves or something else is not good enough, so what you can do is possibly take a kli and tie it on with a very, very loose string. Maybe get your hand wet or something like that. I don't know exactly what you had in mind, but basically if you let it go with the string, if you're holding with the string, perhaps you can put it inside that way. Feel free to clarify your suggestion because I'm not sure if I understood all the points that you had in mind. But there might be some way to do that also. I'll leave it to you to clarify if you want to write more what you had in mind on that point. While that gets clarified, the other possibility, keep your hands out of the mikvah, dangle it in the water. Meaning, the question is like this: you're supposed to hold. Okay, right. I guess if you tie the string tightly around the utensil, so the main point is that the entire utensil has to be in the water, and the entire utensil has to touch the water. So if the string is tied loosely, so then as long as the water touches every single part of the utensil when it's in at the same time, so then the utensil is totaled, even if your hands are not in the water. If that's possible, so then you can do that when you take it out. So as soon as you get home, or maybe even before you get home, figure out a way. Maybe you want to hold it with gloves, then wash it off carefully with water afterwards. So any potential germs that might have been in the water will get washed off very easily. That's definitely a possibility. The other point that I was going to mention is that certain types of utensils is a question of what they are. We generally tovel glass and metal, but many people also have the minimum to tovel, let's say, ceramic with a glass glaze or something like that. So those are a little bit more of machlokas. There are some poskim that hold that if it's only a glass glaze, ceramic with a shine. So those utensils, it could be that you could be makel this time because it's a Shabbat Chak, and anyway, some poskim hold that it's not necessary. So that's another option for those types of utensils if you have something like that that you want to tovel. Okay, that's in terms of toveling. Any other comments or questions about toveling? Again, feel free to write it in the box if you have right now for 10 seconds. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next point. Okay. Anyone know the link? I'll have to look, okay? To be honest, I didn't have a chance to actually find it myself. I was told about it. I didn't actually look. Somet is easy to find. In Somet, you just search for Google Somet, either in Hebrew or in English. You'll find their website. If you can't find it on the Somet website, then I'll have to look for it for you, and I'll send, okay. Beseder, it's not so easy to find. Beseder, okay, so Belinator, I'll try to look for it myself either later today or tomorrow night, God willing, and I'll send somebody who is here, I'll send one of you the link. I can find it, and hopefully you can pass it on for whoever wants. Okay, next point. I want to do Biur Chametz first, because Biur Chametz is a little bit more simple, and then we'll go back to a question about koshering and siyum, and hopefully that'll be it. In terms of Biur Chametz, so we know the halacha is that we usually try to burn our chametz with a fire. And this year, because communal gatherings are not recommended and probably not allowed, you probably could get fined for going out and trying to burn your chametz with somebody else, or even going out without anybody else. So the instructions this year are generally try to burn your chametz at home. So the question is, can you do that? And if so, how do you do that? So the first option is for those of you who are able and willing and can do it safely, and key point here is do it safely, is you can burn the chametz in your backyard. Meaning, if you go to your backyard and you make a small little fire, and you make sure that you know how to control the fire, it won't get too big, and doesn't burn anybody down, doesn't burn any things down, any houses, anything like that. So that's one possible option that you can do to burn your chametz in that way. If you do that, so in addition to the safety, you also have to make sure and be careful that the chametz gets totally burned. So this is a question because chametz and beer chametz does not always get so easily burned. It's often the wood and the plastic that shouldn't be there that get more burned. And the chametz either doesn't get in the fire or it gets partially burned. So that's a big question that you have to be careful about, especially because this year is, if you're doing the chametz in your backyard, so that's still part of your reshus. If it's still part of your reshus, then it's a little bit more of a question if the chametz is still edible afterwards. Even if you do the bittul, you nullify the chametz, but still, if you have edible chametz in your possession, that's problematic. Even if you batel it, we're afraid you might come to eat it. So essentially what you need to do is to burn it well, make sure that it's burned well. I see Micha wrote to everybody here, if you want to take a look at the chat box. So you can dig a pit. If you dig a pit, that's the safest thing to do, and it might burn a little better in the pit. Okay, thanks for that tip. I never tried it, but definitely a possibility. You can definitely try it. In addition to that, if you're not sure that your chametz got totally burned, so then what you can do is follow the next potential instruction, which would be the following. Now, this you can do even if you don't want to burn your chametz. So in the Shulchan Aruch, basically what they bring down is that the Shulchan Aruch says you're able to either burn it, it's in Suman Taf Mem Hey, Sorfo o Poru V'Zor L'Ruach. You can crush it up into small pieces and then scatter it into the wind, o Zorko L'Yam, or throw it to the sea. So if you are able to do that, basically what you can do is take small pieces, which anyway is probably best to take, let's say, little pieces of bread, let's say that you hid for your b'dikat chametz. It's always better to make sure that the pieces are small, definitely less than a kizayit. If they're small anyway, so then it's very easy to put them in, to crush them a little bit more. Maybe you don't even need to do that. And then all you need to do is basically flush it down the toilet, or even just take it outside and toss the little crumbs into the street. That's not a hard thing to do. It is possible also if you throw it into the garbage, if you know your garbage is going to be collected before the last month for beer chametz. I know what time it is in Mitzvah Yericho. I don't know what time it is in Yad B'Yavin, but from past years I remember I think that they usually have one on Erev Pesach. You just got to make sure and see what time it's going to be. So if it's taken away and crushed up in the garbage truck before the latest month, so that's also a possibility. Let's see here, Orly wrote comments to me here also. So another good point that Orly made, of course, that it's major pieces of chametz, meaning large amounts of cereal or pasta or whatever else you have, or bread, it's definitely recommended to dispose of that the day before. Meaning don't leave that to the last second. That should be already disposed of in whatever way the day before, or 2 days before. The last day, meaning the morning of Erev Pesach, leave just the small little pieces of bread or small other pieces of chametz of whatever it is to dispose of in this way. Again, either down the toilet a little bit, or if you toss it outside, or in the garbage, again, very small pieces in the garbage. If you get stuck, this we spoke about last night a little bit, if you get stuck before, if your chametz is still in your possession, after the garbage is taken away, so then what you can do is, again, make it small pieces and just, pour oven cleaner on it or some other kind of cleaning agent to make it inedible, and then you pour it into the garbage that way. That's another possible option. Again, that should be done if you can't get to the garbage in time. That's in terms of beer chametz. So we don't have much time here. Okay, I guess Moshe is about to write to us what the story is with the cleanup committee. And I see here also the Tzomet homepage. It's called E-Tvila. The place where the Tvila came with the goy is E-Tvila. That's the story in terms of that. Okay, for now, I think we don't have so much time. We're going to skip the questions of koshering for now. If we have time afterwards, if you want to stick around, we can come back to it. If not, you can message me. You can email me privately, and I can give you the whole roundup from last night. In terms of siyum first, so the siyum on Erev Pesach is another interesting question. So usually we go to shul, or whoever is a firstborn goes to shul and listens to a siyum to get out of the custom of fasting for firstborn on Erev Pesach, because of the whole story in Mitzrayim where the firstborn of the Egyptians were killed and we were saved. So question is, what do we do this year if you can't get to a siyum because you're at home? So one option is to do it yourself, meaning if you have a siyum to make, either based on a Gemara you've learned or something else, you can make a siyum yourself. There are poskim that hold that you're allowed to make a siyum on a sefer of Tanakh if you learn it with commentaries. So the suggestion made, if you want to do it yourself, is to take Sefer Ovadia. Ovadia is one chapter, it's very short. Or you could take one of the Megillas, Ruth or Shir Hashirim or Esther. learn it with mefarshim, not just read it straight, but learn it a little bit more in detail. Or you can, let's say, take Sefer Yonah 4 prakim, again with the translation and let's say Rashi or one or two other commentaries. And you do it yourself. Many poskim, including the Moshe Feinstein, hold that is definitely an absolutely legitimate way of doing a siyum. That's number one. Number two, if that's not an option or you don't feel like doing that, so there's an interesting discussion. I see. Okay, so Orlean also wrote to me about some people say that you can learn the Masechet of Mishnah, right? So I saw that also. Thank you for mentioning that. There are some Rabbanim, I think even Rav Melamed said this, but there are some that say that in this type of situation, for you yourself personally, if you learn one Masechet of Mishnah, a whole Seder counts for sure. You do a whole Seder of Mishnayos. But if you even do one Masechet of Mishnah with a little bit of commentary of the Bar Tanura or Kahati maybe, or English commentary, so that also would be possible to make a siyum for yourself. That's definitely a possibility as well. If you want to do it online, so if somebody's giving it through Zoom or through some other online platform, so a fascinating discussion in halakha about whether that counts for making a siyum if you're not together in person, but you can do it, you're watching somebody else do it. So I'll tell you the opinions that I heard about. I didn't see any of these inside, so you'll have to tell me if anybody knows the exact makoros for them, but I'll tell you the different options that could be. One option is not so positive about it. I saw in the name of Chaim Kanievsky, at least in one place, apparently he writes, but I think in one other place he might write differently, but at least in one place, supposedly Rav Chaim Kanievsky wrote that he thought that there was room, certainly b'shat hadachak, to rely on a siyum during, even through a telephone call, and probably also according to that with Zoom. But according to his other tzad, he said that maybe you shouldn't do that, meaning that a siyum through long distance type of participation is not considered to be a siyum. I believe Rav Sternbach also said, I didn't see where it was yet, but I think Rav Sternbach said something similar. And the idea basically is very pashut. If you hold that way, the idea is that a siyum is a communal event. You basically need to share in the simcha of the person making the siyum. You need to be in the same place as them. And if you're not in the same place, if you watch them or hear them, but you're not actually there, it doesn't work. In addition, some said that the problem is that if you hear them online or by phone, it's not actually hearing their voice. The same way that there's a major question about Megillah, so here also, if you don't actually hear them say it for real, live and in person, so then that would not count as actually hearing the siyum. That's the first side. The second side, before we get to the lenient side, I see somebody wrote here. I see Aaron wrote, you can fast. Okay, so that's the other option. Those of you who are interested in fasting, you can definitely fast. Personally, I don't recommend it. The reason why, number one, is that this siyum is only a minhag. It's not mentioned in the Gemara. It's mentioned only in the Rishonim. Being that it's only mentioned in the Rishonim, and the Mishnah Brura says that if you're not feeling well, or you have a headache, or it's hard for you, or you're not going to be able to fulfill your mitzvah of eating matzah or maror or things like that at the Seder, so then you can be mekil. So if you take that approach, so then here also, I've always taken the approach that if you need to and you can't get to a siyum, b'shas hadachak, there's room to be mekil even without any siyum, because in my mind, I think that most people would have a tough time waiting till 11 o'clock at night, or whatever time you eat your shulchan aruch or your matzah, to fast all the way until then, except for kiddush and karpas, is very, very difficult, and that would probably ruin your seder. In addition, it may ruin your mitzvah of Sifrei Yetziat Mitzrayim, meaning your ability to tell the story to your family also is going to be impaired, probably if you don't eat. So in my mind, that's certainly a reason to be mekil. And even if you couldn't get to a siyum, personally, I would say better not to fast than to fast. But if you feel you're up to it and you can make it till that time and it will not impinge on your Seder night, for sure, you can definitely do that. I see Orlin wrote to me also here. I see there was Shlomo Zalman that I mentioned. I'm sorry. That's the next point. Okay, so the lenient side, some people say that you're allowed to make a siyum for other people, even if it's not in and this year you probably saw it inside. That in a footnote in Halichos Shlomo, so Shlomo Zalman says, in a case of specific need, one time where Shlomo Zalman allowed it by phone. So I heard also Rav Asher Weiss, apparently also for this year specifically, maybe other years, but certainly for this year, Rav Asher Weiss held also that you're allowed to make a siyum long distance for somebody. I would just add my extra 2 cents here, and maybe this is what Rav Asher Weiss meant, but I'm not sure, is that it could be that by online, by Zoom, or by other online platforms, there's more reason to allow it even than a phone call. Because of the fact that when you're online, you can see and you can really participate a little bit more so in the simcha of the other person. Meaning, since the main idea here is to share in the simcha to participate in the simcha of the other person. So if you're online and you're doing everything online, which this year everything is happening online, concerts and shiurim and social events and your kids, Ariel and Ezra activities probably, and Bnei Akiva or whatever it is, everything is taking place online the last couple of weeks. So right now, this time, the way to share in somebody's simcha is to do it this way, through online interaction with Zoom or anything else. Same way that some levayas, unfortunately, and weddings and bar mitzvahs are also being done this way. So certainly when it comes to this, if the main point is simcha, then you can participate in the simcha online this year, the same way you would have any other time. So I would say that I think that's also a very strong reason to be mekil. The only extra point I mentioned last night is that I think that the simcha is enhanced when you can actually see the other person. So personally, I would say that if you're able to, for the siyum, to actually watch the other people there, certainly if you're the person watching, the one making the siyum, it's best that the person making the siyum should be visible. And I think everybody else also, it's best if they can be visible online rather than just see their name. Then that really, I think, also shares in the interaction and the participation on both sides and makes it, I think it's even better in terms of participation of making the siyum online. So that was my 2 cents. I see also Micha wrote that Rav Nevin's also said that his Zoom siyum was okay. Excellent. Okay, so we have definitely what to rely on for this year in terms of that. In terms of minyanim online, so that's another interesting question. Maybe we'll talk about that on Chol HaMoed. I think Yitz and Phil are thinking about making a shir over Chol HaMoed, so I might be participating if we do it. I think minyanim and other things online is a very interesting topic to talk about, a little more controversial. So maybe we'll speak about that. Okay, any other comments or questions about the siyum or other points here? Look at the chat box, everybody. There's a few other points there about the garbage that I didn't mention that you can take a look and see what was written here. I see what Moshe wrote right now. It's okay. Nobody should feel that you need to put yourself out for me now. I'd be very happy to see anybody, but there's no need. I was just saying for the siyum specifically that it's helpful. Any other comments about this point or anything else? Okay. I think our time is up. Rav Orlean or Avi, if you want to spend a few more minutes, we can go over some of the kashering points. Otherwise, anybody who has specific questions can share them with me or Rav Orlean or anybody else at a later time. Okay. Yasher koach, everybody. Yasher koach to Rav Orlean and to everybody from Yad B'Yamin for putting this together. And everybody should have a chag kasher sameach and good Shabbos. So we should only hear good news and good things in the very, very near future to come, very, very soon. The geula should come. Our personal geula and our national geula as well. Yasher koach.